She got shot in the back 3 more times over the heart, and then 1 last time in the neck.
A cold-hearted murder.
There's some sort of personal connection between the perpetrator and the victim to drive that level of violence.
A woman with many admirers, any one of them a suspect.
He said that it was going to be difficult for him to write poetry anymore because his muse was dead.
Was there some expectation on his part that she pay him back in some way? Maybe with romantic interest, or it was a loan and it needed to be paid back quicker.
He had pushed her down the stairs and assaulted her.
It's clear that a great deal of plotting and scheming went into this crime.
The truth will be revealed.
Now it all makes sense, and boom, we got him.
Every day in North America, dozens of people are murdered. The key to solving the toughest of these homicides lies in the final 24 hours of the victim's life. To crack the case, detectives must reconstruct that critical timeline. The minutes and hours containing evidence that can help unlock the mystery and catch the killer. Frisco, Texas. Everything is bigger and better in this small town.
It was just a nice, quintessential town. It's a suburb of Dallas. There's fairly large houses, family town. It's kind of a close-knit community. The Dallas Cowboys are home here, so that's where they practice and train at. There's the minor league baseball team here for the Rangers. So Frisco is definitely a sports town.
It's a very safe community. It's friendly. It's diverse. It was rated one of the best places in America to live.
But on one chilly January morning, Frisco's peacefulness is rocked to its core.
On January 14th, we got a call, a welfare check from Henry Braxton. He wanted to check in on his girlfriend, Anna. She hadn't shown up for their date, and she hadn't showed up to work all day, so he was concerned about her health and safety. Responding officers went to Anna's house. There was no answer at the door. Anna's son, Eager, met the officers at the house. Eager has a key, and they checked the house. Everything looked fine, looked like a normal, nice, well-kept house. Then they go in the garage, and that's when they find Anna's body. She was on the floor, like there was a little bit of blood. We discovered there's multiple gunshot wounds, and she was on her back with her body kind of twisted. It looked like she got shot in the back. She falls, kind of hits her car, falls down. That's what twists her. That's what puts her in the position that we find her at in the garage. The shooter then shoots her 3 more times over the heart, and then shoots her 1 last time in the neck. How she was shot with the contact wound, gunshot wound to the neck, it was like the shooter had some sort of emotional attachment and just couldn't shoot her in the face. But at the same time, they wanted her dead.
The victim is 42-year-old university administrator, Anna Moses.
Anna was a very smart gal, ambitious, a real go-getter, and also a very devoted mom. I admired her so much. She trained as an engineer and economist, and if she was reading a book, she wasn't reading in Russian. She was reading in English, which is astonishing because, you know, English was her second language.
Originally from Russia, Anna moved to Texas with her young son after marrying salesman Robert Moses.
Robert Moses had adopted Eager. He loved Eager and treated him like his own son and cared for him. Robert and Anna had a happy marriage, but as the years went on, it appeared that their marriage started to decline. And eventually, both parties decided to enter into a divorce.
After Bob and Anna separated, he would come over to her house to help her with, like, if the washing machine was broken, things like that. He didn't seem angry with her. She didn't seem angry with him. Anna was doing extremely well. and she was happy.
Heading up the investigation into the murder of Anna Moses are Detective Brian Schutte and prosecutor Cynthia Walker. They begin by processing the crime scene.
In the garage, I see right next to her body is mail, and then there's a fast food kind of bag or wrapper, and her purse was there right next to her body as well. We find $300 cash inside the purse. It didn't appear to be rummaged through or anything like that. Nothing appeared to be missing.
This occurred in January, and it was a cold day. And as you would, getting out of your car, going into the house, still had her coat on, still had her scarf on. There was no sign of a struggle. But it appeared that she had probably stopped by her mailbox, pulled her mail, had it in her hand, and she was walking toward the inside of her house to go in, and then was ambushed by this shooter.
There's bullet casings in the garage. We found almost a dozen. It's overkill when you find 11 bullet casings for one person. Our home burglar is not going to shoot someone so many times typically. Usually they will shoot someone so that they can get away. In this case, it's some sort of intentional or planned murder.
This shooting is clearly excessive. When we think about the reasons why overkill occurs, we often think about there needing to be some sort of personal connection between the perpetrator and the victim to drive that level of violence.
As detectives survey the crime scene, they make a surprising realization.
Anna's car is missing in the driveway, and it's not in the garage either. So we don't know where her car's at.
Did somebody kill her for the car? The police figure the person who killed Anna is probably with the car, and if they can locate it, that may lead them to where the killer is.
To find Anna's killer, detectives will need to unravel the final 24 hours of her life.
It was critical for us to get the timeline going. It establishes where the victim is and then who has contact with the victim and when they last had contact with them. And that timeline is going to be crucial for us figuring out who the killer is.
Investigators speak to Anna's 20-year-old son, Igor, a student at the University of Dallas, Frisco, the same university where Anna worked. They're hoping he can help fill in Anna's whereabouts in her final 24 hours.
Igor says he talked to his mother the day before, January 13th, but he hadn't talked to her that morning. So Igor went to her office to see if she was at school because he lived on campus, and she wasn't at her office.
Anna's work day typically ended at 5 p.m. Security cameras showed her car with the license plate leaving the university parking garage at 5:07 p.m. At the scene, there was also a receipt that was close by her body that showed that Anna purchased a quesadilla at 5:37 p.m. The fast food place was on the major roadway that she would have been traveling on her way home.
Police check surveillance video from the fast food location and spot Anna at the drive-thru window at 5:37 p.m. She pays for her food, then leaves.
It appeared that she was alone in the car, though the vantage point wasn't perfect. We looked at the route that she would normally take home, and there was an elementary school further up the road. And so the officers got the security camera, and they saw at 5:46 p.m. a car that fit her description that was going the same direction toward her house. And so it was like, okay, she made it this far, just a few blocks from her home. And still, there was no evidence that there was somebody else in the car with her at the time.
Police request the footage from all the other surveillance cameras in the area.
From the neighbors' surveillance cameras, they were able to tell that there was a car that passed at 5:49 p.m. We presume that that was Anna's vehicle as it approached her house. So we believe that she had arrived at her home about 5:50 p.m.
We go to Anna's house to check the alarm system, and we have an alarm technician tell us that the alarm was last set on January 13th at 8:29 a.m., and it was never disarmed. So the house was armed, she leaves for work on the 13th, comes home, never goes back into her house, and she was found dead in the garage. We're thinking that the killer came in through the garage and had access to the garage, and just kind of laid in wait and waited for Anna to get home, and that's when they shot her.
The time of death, the investigators believed, and I believed, it was about 5:50 p.m. By the way that she was shot, surprised, we assumed that as soon as she arrived, about 5:50, somebody had shot her almost immediately. So she never made it into her house.
Having established that Anna was killed at approximately 5:50 p.m., Detective Schutte asks Eager about anyone in Anna's life who might have wanted to harm her.
Eager said there was a man that Anna was dating and had been dating since the summer before she was killed. His mother and her boyfriend had a standing date night on Tuesday nights. On the day that Anna was killed, they were going to meet in the evening and have dinner.
Anna's boyfriend, Henry, is already on detectives' radar as someone they want to talk to. He was the person who first reported her missing. Detectives bring Henry in for questioning.
He has a dating relationship with the victim. We're trying to establish what kind of relationship they were in, and basically want to try to find out when he last saw and spoke to her.
We texted at noon to talk, to make sure she could talk, because she was at work and I was at work, so.
He seemed to be very forthcoming, very detailed. It appeared that he was trying to be very helpful. And the police looked to see if there had been any sort of major blow-ups and problems, but he said that Anna really, enjoyed their relationship, and really there wasn't anything.
But as soon as investigators leave the room, Henry transforms. He's captured on video, suddenly acting suspiciously.
He was nervous. He starts kind of mumbling and talking to himself. Henry's heard kind of saying, what did I do? Did I mess up or something like that? And it's kind of an odd statement. So there's cause for concern. It raises the flag. We got to investigate further.
Whenever you see someone talking to oneself the way Henry does in the interview room when he thinks he's alone, of course, everyone's still listening, you have to ask yourself, why aren't those little details occurring during the interview itself? What is he hiding?
In the brutal murder of Anna Moses, investigators are zeroing in on her boyfriend, Henry. Concerned about his alarming transformation in the interrogation room, Detective Schutte decides to put Henry to the test.
We didn't have a whole lot of evidence, so pretty much when we started talking to people, we were going to ask for DNA. So we asked Henry for consensual DNA, and he's kind of reluctant, kind of hesitant, and he said maybe he should get an attorney. It raises a red flag if someone doesn't want to cooperate with the investigation that should have an invested interest.
With Henry in their crosshairs, detectives focus on whether he had the opportunity to kill his girlfriend, Anna.
The night that Anna was murdered, Henry said he went to his daughter's school for an event. He was there from 6 until 7. At 7:03, Henry texted Anna that he was on his way to her house to take her out on the date.
I texted, I'm on my way, I'll be there in about a half an hour, because that's about how long it takes.
Henry said he showed up to the house around 7:37. Knocked on the door, no answer. Looked in the windows up front, there's no lights, nothing going on in the house that he can see. The garage door is closed. He's kind of banging on the door, making phone calls, sending Anna text messages, asking her where she's at, what's going on, but he can't get a hold of her at all.
I don't know what to do, so I ended up going home. And then I called periodically through the night and sent her a text again at like 11.
So you never heard any text from her?
No, not after we texted at noon.
The next day, Henry still hadn't heard from Anna. That's when he called police, asking them to check in on her.
We look into Henry's alibi, and at the time that Anna's murder happened, the CCTV at his daughter's school had his Jeep on camera as being there. So Henry was at that school during the time frame of her murder. We believe she died between 5:50 and 6 p.m. So there's no way that Henry could have killed Anna because there's no physical way he could get to his daughter's school in 10 minutes. It's impossible. So during the investigation, we're able to rule out Henry as a suspect.
While Henry turns out to be a dead end, investigators soon have a new lead.
We got the call that they located Anna's car. We were pretty ecstatic, because there could be evidence that we needed that could be crucial to this investigation. The car's located a couple streets away from Anna's house. It's parked illegally on the side of the street.
Detectives set to work, processing Anna's car.
They found a Red Bull can and a very weathered cigarette bud that was on the side of the seat. They thought that was unusual. One, because Anna didn't smoke. Two, because she tried to keep her car very clean. She was kind of meticulous in how she dressed and kept her house and her car. And so this was unlike her.
We also found blood on the inside of the car, and we're thinking this could be our huge break in the case. Analysts find a blood stain on the back seat and bottom of the seat, and it looks like it could marry up with when you put your seatbelt on, and then on the center console, there's a little drop of blood. It was bright red in color. It didn't appear to be an old stain or smudge. It appeared to be fresh. We're thinking, as long as that blood does not match Anna Moses, then that will be our killer.
But when the forensics come in, the results take investigators by surprise.
We found 3 different DNA profiles in the car. The first, genetic markers that indicate Anna Moses. The second, unidentified male. And then the third was a mixture of Anna's DNA and an unknown male's. The fact that there's 2 unknown males, it could mean that there's 2 different people there to murder her.
Investigators check the DNA samples from the car against their database, but they don't get any matches.
It's pretty frustrating because we didn't know who the suspect was, so it's just another kind of roadblock in the investigation. But we have to keep moving. We can't let the trail go cold. This was my first big murder case, and I am a big problem solver. I like working towards that goal of finding who the killer is.
Searching for new leads, Detective Schutte takes a closer look at Anna's personal life.
We look into Anna's computer and different social media things. We end up finding a person named Jerry, and Jerry had written some poems for Anna and had actually published a poetry book. Anna had a copy at her house. We're kind of shocked because, I mean, there's some pretty strong feelings in poetry in that. So the best thing was for us to go talk to Jerry.
Anna told me that Jerry was such an artist. I never got any sense that there was any kind of sexual relationship. It was more like some kind of very deep spiritual bond.
As detectives dig deeper, they discover Jerry seemed obsessed with Anna, emailing and calling her multiple times a day.
He described Anna as his muse, which shows, pretty strong emotional connections and ties. If someone has pretty strong feelings, enough to write a poetry book and get it published about a person, we're gonna look into that person and see if maybe those feelings were reciprocated or not, and what their relationship was all about.
In this case, where there is a friend who has such a obsession, sometimes your admirer may have ulterior motives.
Investigators didn't know if Jerry knew about Henry or if there was a resentment because she had a boyfriend.
If there's that level of interest on Jerry's part, and you could see how there could be a jealousy or there could be anger. Is there something that had happened? And so the police had to look to see, did Jerry commit the crime? Did he kill Anna Moses?
In Anna Moses' murder, detectives are zeroing in on a new suspect, an admirer and poet named Jerry. When investigators question him about Anna, he gets emotional.
I can't bring her back, but I want justice for her.
Jerry was hit pretty hard with Anna's murder, breaking down, crying, sobbing. Jerry said that it was going to be difficult for him to write poetry anymore because his muse was dead. It's a little odd where someone kind of makes it about themselves that I won't be able to write anymore. Jerry said he and Anna met at like a speaking group, public speaking, where people who want to better themselves in public speaking can join this group and then get up and they give different speeches. Anna was primarily taking that class to try to get rid of some of her Russian accent. Jerry said he liked her accent and didn't want her to change it, and that's how they first met.
I could honestly say, yeah, Anna is a very attractive person and sweet and beautiful, but I was just trying to be anything I could be to be a friend.
Jerry would go to the opera with Anna. He would go do things with her that was real, kind of artsy.
When Detective Schutte presses Jerry for more details about his relationship with Anna, there's a surprising revelation.
I've been married since '73, but then, I've come to points where I felt like, let me out of here, but we've stuck with it.
He tells us, I have a wife, and my wife knows about Anna. And it seemed like Jerry really liked Anna, but he was married and committed to someone else. There's indicators that Jerry didn't want, his wife or Anna's boyfriend to know everything that they were doing together. Clearly, there's an emotional attachment. Jealousy or lover scorn could be a motive, but we don't know if the opportunity is there for him to actually have done this. Jerry's alibi is that he was at his house all night with his wife. Jerry tells us he got off of work around 5 and went straight home. So we go try to vet the information he tells us. We look at toll tag information to verify his whereabouts. We confirm that on Tuesday 13th, Jerry leaves his work at 5 p.m. and is tracked along the tollway till he gets home around 6 p.m., where he's there all night. We believe Anna was killed between 5:50 and 5:55 p.m. on the 13th. There's no possible way Jerry could have made it to Anna's house at the time frame she was killed.
The police could corroborate his alibi, which is that he was traveling home in a different area, and his car was hitting the different tollway gates. And so there just wasn't anything to substantiate making Jerry a suspect anymore.
With another suspect ruled out, detectives broadened the scope of their investigation to the university where Anna worked.
We interviewed Anna's coworkers just to see if they could describe any possible motive or suspect that might help us out. They let us know that she had a mentor that worked at the university.
Investigators learned that Anna had a special relationship with this mentor, Dr. Workowski.
We know he's a professor at the university for mathematics. We wanted to make sure we just talked to him and see what the relationship was.
Dr. Workowski stated that at this stage in his life and in Anna's, that they were close friends. He's almost 30 years older than Anna.
Anna is very private in her life, yet she has so many interesting relationships in her world. And so one might think, is he part of that world or part of her circle who is interested in her or cares about her so much that they want more than she's able to give, almost like an unrequited love or interest that's not being reciprocated.
He talks about Anna like he's very fond of her. It's someone he really likes. The doctor had a sweet little nickname for Anna, my little butterfly in Russian.
Investigators pressed Dr. Workowski for more details about his relationship with Anna.
He tells us at one point he did have a special love interest with her. They kissed at one point, but he said he cut it off because of his age difference. I think it was probably one-sided on his part, but I could be wrong. It might have been a deal where he tried to kiss her and she was like, whoa, this ain't happening. And then he advised that he would kind of help out Anna from time to time. In fact, even help pay for Eager's college. He had given Anna about $40,000.
She also had recently given her an additional $6,000. That's a lot of money. Police had to look at that.
We asked him why he would do that, and he basically said that he didn't want to give his money to a charity that he'd never see how it helped people. He would rather give his money to his friends and actually see how it impacted their life for the better, see how happy it made them.
Was there some expectation on his part that she, pay him back in some way, whether it was a romantic interest or maybe it was a loan and she didn't pay back quicker, or something that he would feel enraged by?
It's possible that he wants to help her and he's giving money to her for that reason. It's also possible that money's being exchanged for another purpose. Maybe he wants something in return. Maybe he doesn't get what's promised, or perhaps Anna has some information and then she's expecting more money from him. These things are entirely possible.
Also, Dr. Workowski is a smoker, and we found a cigarette in the car. So that was just another odd piece of the puzzle.
With suspicion now swirling around the professor, police ask him about his activities on January 13th, the day Anna was killed.
Dr. Workowski advised on the 13th he was at work, had spoke to Anna a couple times that day. They had tea together around 2:30. He was the last person that we knew talked to her before her death. We asked how that conversation was. I think he said just normal conversation, just friends talking. He told us he finished up his day, then went home, and he arrived home around 5:45. We go through the toll tag records to verify where his car was, if it went the right direction or what direction it was traveling and when it was traveling. The toll record showed everything he said to be right on. Based on where he lives and where Anna lives, it's not possible to get from his house at 5:45 to Anna's house at 5:50 to murder her. Dr. Workowski provided a consensual DNA sample. We turned that sample over to the lab. Nothing came back as a match. His DNA sample exonerates him, so we have no reason to believe Dr. Workowski is a suspect.
With Dr. Workowski no longer a suspect, investigators find themselves back at square one.
It's just kind of frustrating when you're working these cases, and it's just, you keep running into these roadblocks. It's hard knowing that a killer's walking the streets. We need to try to figure out and find who the killer is.
Having exhausted all their leads, detectives go back to the drawing board looking for anything that could help point them to Anna Moses' killer.
We did a search warrant on her house, and we located Anna's life insurance policy. It was for $650,000, and it was designated to go to Eager, her son.
Eager was the most important thing to Anna, and if anything ever happened to her, she wanted to make sure that he was going to be taken care of. But if Anna was out of the picture, Eager, he would be in a much better position financially than if she had been alive.
So as the cliche goes, people might say follow the money. And in this case, when it's learned that there is an assurance policy and the beneficiary is Anna's son, clearly that's cause for concern in terms of, could the crime have been committed to obtain this money?
With Anna's son Eager now in their crosshairs, investigators bring him down to the station for questioning.
When you're interviewing someone, you do look around and kind of see what their body language is. It's not only what they say, but how they say it and their demeanor, things like that. And at that time, Eager just kind of raised a little flag like, hey, this is different. He doesn't really express himself, and you can't get a read off of him because it's just nothing there. Eager had some kind of weird comment about his mom's murder. He asked, was she all in one piece? And it was kind of strange. We're like, well, why would you think she wasn't in one piece? It was just an odd statement. When we first told him that, his mother had been killed, he went and played sports with his friends in college. So it just kind of perked our interest on kind of where Eager's mindset was and what was going on with him.
Detectives hone in on Eager's whereabouts during the time Anna was killed.
On the 13th, Eager said he was in class from 5:30 to 6:45 that night, and that he went and got some food to the little campus bistro, and then went back to class from 7 to 9:45 that night. We went and interviewed people from Eager's classes that said they saw him there at the times that he said he was at class, and we were able to pull up a transaction from him at the campus bistro, along with him on the CCTV. So he pretty much was eliminated as a suspect based on his timeline and the events that we saw.
Before police let Eager go, investigators ask about the insurance money. Eager mentions that his father, Robert, is managing Anna's assets.
It appeared that Robert Moses had a very close relationship with his son. Even though Eager was an adult, Robert would have had a lot of control over where that insurance money went. Also, the home that used to be Robert's and Anna's, when they divorced, Anna got the home and Robert moved out.
And we found out the day after Anna died, Bob moves into her house. And her body wasn't even cold in the ground, and he moves into her house. That's a huge red flag for us.
While everybody is devastated and upset, his interest was all about the money, and he would say that he was doing it for Eager's benefit. But it just struck people as particularly off-putting and inappropriate.
Talking with Anna's close friends, investigators uncover more unsettling information about her ex-husband.
Bob Moses. He had low self-esteem, and he covered it up by appearing confident, even arrogant or cocky. He always was acting like he was a real authority. So he seemed like the kind of guy who liked to be in the thick of things, but he wasn't devoted to some kind of career or calling. He was Anna's Svengali, he thought. Bob apparently had told Anna, "You'll never be able to make it on your own," because when she first came to this country, she was really pretty dependent on Bob, and I think he liked it that way.
While Anna focused on her education and building her career, Robert's career was sinking.
There was a pattern. Bob getting a job, getting fired, getting another job, not liking it, quitting. It had happened several times. And it was bothering Anna because she was not like that at all. Eventually, she didn't need him anymore. In fact, she was doing better than he had been doing when they first met. I'm sure it drove Bob crazy.
In my mind, Robert is resenting Anna, both in terms of her ability to move on with her life and also financially. And I wonder if Robert also may have some over-controlled hostility, and that he might be the type of person who takes these resentments that pile up until one day he might explode with anger. And when he does, it can be excessive. This could be a motive for murder in this case.
One of Anna's friends tells investigators Bob was violent in their relationship, and the situation reached a boiling point.
Anna came over to her house crying and kind of frantic because Bob had pushed her down the stairs and had basically assaulted her. Anna had actually broke her wrist from that incident, and we were able to get a copy of the medical records from the hospital, and we had photographs of her at an event with the cast on. So that's putting the spotlight on Bob now.
As investigators move Bob to the top of their list of suspects, his motive comes more into focus.
Bob was not doing well at all financially. Anna had gotten the house in the divorce, so he had to rent a room in a house with like 3 or 4 other grown men. I mean, what 62-year-old man wants to have 3 or 4 roommates? That has to be depressing. It was like his life was spiraling down, hers was spiraling up. She was dating, she had tons and tons of friends, she was taking courses, she had a good solid job, and I think it just ate away at Bob.
When I start diving into Bob's financials, oh boy, there's a lot of debt, and he's at that age where he can't recover from that type of debt. Anna has this big chunk of change from a life insurance policy. Bob is in serious financial debt. It seems like there's this nexus between these two people. It's a red flag for us because Anna was killed, and the only one benefiting off of her death at that moment is Bob Moses.
After a series of false starts and dead ends, investigators now have a prime suspect in Anna Moses' murder, her ex-husband, Robert.
We bring Bob in and talk to him, sit down, have a good interview. Then we see like a little scratch on his right hand above his knuckle. We ask him about it.
What happened to your hand there?
Oh, my dog, I was trying to put the covers on the bed this morning. He jumped up on the bed before I had the cover. I said, no, get down. I put him down. I went to it, and I ran into the desk, my room, the corner of the desk, and just kind of cut my hand there.
It was this kind of long, drawn-out answer to like a simple question. And it's been my training experience when someone answers a question like that, it's the person thinking of a way to tell a lie, and they're making it up as they go and hoping you believe it. And we're like, wow, that's pretty fresh. He showed it to us, and it's a small little cut. And then we ask him, hey, can we take a DNA sample? he cooperated with that part of the investigation.
Okay. So I want you to go ahead and rub it on your left cheek. Left. Yeah.
Many guilty offenders have voluntarily given DNA, including some serial killers, who, as part of their confidence game, will turn over a hair or even provide blood, hoping that by appearing cooperative, that they're less suspicious looking.
Police continue their interrogation, questioning Robert about his relationship with Anna.
When's the last time you were by her house? Well, Eva was out of school, so I was over there, I don't know, it was last week. Last week? I don't know. I mean, I'm trying to think.
He was very kind of vague in general. Instead of a direct answer, he would kind of move around the answer and talk about something else that didn't have anything to do with the question. And so they felt that was pretty odd.
With Robert's evasiveness setting off alarm bells, detectives push him on his whereabouts in the hours leading up to Anna's murder.
He tells us that he was at work, and then that night, I was on the computer, I was watching TV, and I went to a restaurant. It's kind of a place where girls don't wear a whole lot of clothes, and they serve beer and bar food there, and he's kind of a regular there.
Investigators check into Robert's story.
So I follow up with his work. Well, his work says, well, Bob hadn't really been coming to work, and he's pretty much going to be fired because he's not producing any business. So that was very strange to us because he told us he was at work.
He lived in a rental home with 3 other men. They checked, and talking to those other men, no one could say, hey, Robert Moses was at home around 5:50 p.m. on January 13th.
We go to the restaurant that he said he went to. We review the video, and we verify him walking into the restaurant at 7 o'clock. He's there for about an hour and then leaves. But before 7 p.m., we cannot locate or pinpoint where Bob's at. We got all of this information on Bob, but it doesn't mean that he necessarily murdered Anna. But we do have DNA that's waiting to be processed. So at this point, we are waiting to see if Bob's DNA comes back a match to the DNA that was taken from Anna's car.
When the DNA results come back, they confirm the blood found in Anna's car is Robert's blood.
The blood stain on the console was a mixture of Bob's and Anna's DNA. So that ties Bob to the crime scene. That is a huge win for us because now we have the killer. Now it all makes sense. Everything matches what we think is happening, and boom, we got him.
In Robert's eyes, he was a benefactor and even a savior for Anna. He gave her a new life, and in his mind probably thought that he could do no wrong and to some degree owned her. And when she sort of goes out on her own and things didn't work out according to plan, we see that maybe he could never get over that. And the rage just began to fester and boil, and this murder ends up being sort of the final actualization of an anger streak that began years earlier.
With this last piece of the puzzle in place, investigators are now able to fill in the final 24 hours of Anna's life.
On January 13th, Anna had left work around 5 p.m., traveled north on a major roadway, stopped at a fast food restaurant, purchased a quesadilla, drove to her house.
Bob got into the garage, lays in wait. Anna comes home, gets her mail, pulls in the garage at 5:50, closes the door. Bob pops up, boom, 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 shoots her several times. She falls down, and then he comes up to her and shoots her 3 more times over the heart. He didn't shoot her in the face because there's kind of this emotional attachment, but he does shoot her in the throat. That was the finishing shot, just to make sure she was dead.
He's the one who got into the car and then moved it. We don't know exactly when he parked it, but it was found 2 blocks away from the house.
We believe that Bob Moses disables the gun, probably in pieces, or he throws the gun in a trash can or a sewer.
After killing Anna, Robert heads to a nearby restaurant to give himself an alibi.
We interviewed the waitress, and she was like, he made the comment like, this is the greatest grilled cheese sandwich I've ever eaten. When I look back at it, I think that he said that because he was still kind of high on the adrenaline and like he just got away with murder.
The only question left is how the can of Red Bull and cigarette butt ended up in Anna's car, bringing with them the second set of unidentified male DNA.
We have to question if this wasn't part of Robert's way to throw off the investigation. He could grab a can out of a trash can or a cigarette butt on the side of the road and throw it in the car, and that DNA, who knows where that would come from. It would have absolutely nothing to do with this case.
It's clear by Robert's actions that a great deal of plotting and scheming went into this crime. To come up with a whole narrative and to actually move the car to that location, and it has a theatrical quality to it that you very rarely see in the case of a domestic murder.
On February 26, 2015, Robert Moses is arrested for the first-degree murder of his ex-wife, Anna.
Bob was very emotional, so I'm sure that some people thought, oh, well, he couldn't have done it because he was crying. But of course, it's not always the case. Just because you cry, it doesn't mean you're not lying.
There was no doubt in my mind that we had the right person. I knew the detectives felt the same way.
The jury agrees and convicts Robert of murder and sentences him to life in prison.
The timeline was critical. The timeline helped us in determining there's no way this person could be involved because they were on the other side of town. There's no way this person can be involved because they were at this place when the murder allegedly happened. Looking back at all the timeline, the only one who has a big, glaring hole in their story is Bob Moses.
Whenever there's a murder case, you want to do your best and to make sure the perpetrator is held and that justice is served for the victim and the victim's family. In this case, justice was served.
Anna certainly wasn't what you'd call plain vanilla. I miss Anna's laughter, and I miss sharing things with Anna. I went to St. Petersburg for the first time, and it would have been great to have gotten to go with Anna and, share that experience with her. I felt lucky that I met this interesting woman with this interesting background, and now that Anna's gone, it brings me to tears. She was very beloved by many, many people.